Minister, I welcome the opportunity there just to speak on this bill, which I know Minister O'Donoghue outlined covers a range of financial measures, but I think it has to be acknowledged in terms of, and other deputies have spoken about them, the pandemic supports which were brought in, and I sit on the Enterprise Committee, and certainly we were asking government for quite a while for a number of different supports, and I think in the end we didn't get it right from the start, but I think later on, particularly the CRIS and the EWIS were of great help to employers. They allowed them to keep certainly their employees on hand. In the case of hospitality, it allowed them to generate outdoor seating and all of that, which was a great help to them in the summertime, to get them up and going and to give them some very much needed revenue. And I think the EWIS is being, as we know, it's being wound down now, Minister, but I would say to you that we need to be somewhat careful in how we do that. I know we won't have a cliff edge that runs out, I think, until April, but just the same, there may well be businesses who are going to continue to be impacted and who may find that the return to profitability is taking a lot longer than they would have thought. Also, the issue of debt warehousing, which has been discussed here tonight, and again, this is a very important measure to allow businesses to park up debt at a very difficult time in them to face payments to revenue. And for those now up in April of this year, okay, that debt falls due. And if it can't be paid, I'm glad to see that government is extending a zero interest rate out to 2023. And from then on a 3% interest rate to kick in after, and that's as it should be, because, as I say, it's going to be very hard for a lot of businesses to really get back and to get thriving, and they need to have low levels of debt and certainly low levels and flexible levels of interest repayment. Minister O'Donoghue said in his opening remarks that the basis on offering these schemes was built on the prudent financial management of years previously, and I would agree with that statement, Minister. And as I say, as we go to unwind these supports now, we have to be mindful of how they are going to impact. The bill also covers the final payment of €1,000 tax-free to frontline workers and nursing staff. And Minister, I'd ask you to confirm in your closing speech that this will be extended to Section 38 and 39 healthcare workers and those working in the disability sector. They have done sterling work, offering respite, offering home supports, and they need to be recognised. And I think it's very important that they would, along with those obviously working in the nursing home sector. I see also in the media talk of a scheme to offer compensation to those health workers and families who tragically lost their lives during COVID, and I welcome that scheme also, Minister. I think the number is about 23 in this country, and every one of those is a tragic case, because it is a case of somebody who was coming to the aid of somebody else, using all of their training and their expertise to try and help other people, and not realising that they ultimately will become a victim to COVID. So we send certainly sincere condolences to the families so impacted, and I have a family that I know quite well myself who lost a family member, a healthcare worker, during the COVID crisis. Minister Donoghue mentioned that the economy was just beginning to open up, and I think we saw that as we're trying to throw off the shackles of COVID now, albeit that we know COVID is not gone. And we've seen in the last week again, COVID numbers are around. There appears to be a new variant of Omicron going around, and having the first variant doesn't mean that you're immune from the second. So we do have to continue to practice a reasonable degree of I suppose, all of the flexibility that we had before, wearing masks in particular, trying to observe sanitation where possible, sanitizer, and I suppose being very mindful that, again, it is the older cohorts and those with underlying illness who are most at risk here. Minister, we're now facing into probably another perfect storm, which is the Ukraine war that President Putin has decided to unleash. And we're well aware of the terrible tragedy that this is delivering on the Ukrainian people. And our hearts absolutely go out to the Ukrainian people, and we must do everything possible in this country to try and offer support, which I believe we are doing. And I welcome, as I said in the House in recent days, the actions of government and the actions of heroes within the Irish people who are presently now trying to campaign, trying to gather up goods, and some who are travelling over to Poland and even into Ukraine to try and offer their support. But this is going to give significant headwinds to our economy, Minister. And we've just seen, I know we'll have a vote tonight on the fuel increases and on the rebates to fuel. And I think it's welcome, but will it be enough? And my sense is it won't be enough. And I hope we'll be back here soon again, because certainly for agriculture, for the heavy goods industry, you know, where fuel prices have gone is making it untenable to continue operating. In respect of Ukraine, I know we have the Irish Red Cross leading out on accommodation of pledges, which is very welcome, and I know we've had a very significant donation of pledges. I think over 70,000 in recent days have been offered of different levels of accommodation and support. And certainly we need, Minister, a fast-track system, which I think we have now, PPS numbers to be issued quickly to people arriving here so that they can avail of public service payments, accommodation where required, and also to get schooling for children. But I think, Minister, it's impossible to overstate the crisis that's presently coming our way if this Ukraine war is to extend in terms of our food crisis. And we have a particular issue in that, and I said this in the House last week, we have Russia and Ukraine between them accounting for nearly 30% of world grain supplies. And in actual fact, in this country, we do very little production of grain that can actually make flour. We have only one flour milling company in the country, and they do about 20% of their turnover is based on their own manufacturing. The rest of the flour they actually buy in, and this is for baking bread in this country. So we can do flour all right for biscuits, but not for bread. And I think we are going to see a very significant uptick in the cost of bread in the shops, and this is going to impact vulnerable households very, very quickly. There's also the issue, and I know Minister McConnell met with farm leaders yesterday, Minister, in terms of tillage and fodder, and there was talk of a tillage order, but I'm afraid that is not going to work out for a whole range of reasons, not least that there's a number of EU directives that would have to be bypassed in order to allow a tillage order to take place. And secondly, we have a significant headwind now in terms of fertiliser costs. And I was just looking before I came into the House there, calcium ammonia nitrate, which was €390 per tonne only about 4 months ago, is now 1,200 tonnes on a spot rate today and can go to €1,400 per tonne. And the same with urea and ammonia was €600 a tonne. That's now at 1,000 and heading higher again on a spot rate. And we see that a Norwegian large fertiliser manufacturer has signalled that they are reducing their operations simply because they're not sustainable with the price of natural gas. So I think it's fair to say that Vladimir Putin has set up the EU community from quite a long way back. He has allowed us to become totally dependent on his gas and on his oil, and even unwittingly ourselves in terms of our climate policy, we agreed to go forward with that construct. And I think, Minister, we are going to have to look at that now very, very significantly. Minister O'Donoghue said that the employment was now close back to €2.5 million in the economy, but I think we can expect significant headwinds again to that number, and certainly in terms of the economic stability of a lot of businesses. So, as I say, Minister, I think a new energy policy is going to be needed. I have concerns, and I said this in the House recently, that we are going to turn around in May and add further carbon prices onto fossil fuels, and thereby adding to the inflation already in the economy. And secondly, we see what America is now doing with liquid natural gas, upping their capacity at the same time while we have turned our back on it. And we seem to be putting all our hopes on renewable energy, on solar farms, which we haven't yet developed. And we're talking about onshore and offshore wind. And Minister, anybody who's studied the wind problem at the moment will realise that we are probably minimum 10 years away in this country from being able to offer ourselves any type of offshore wind solution. That means we're basically open to conglomerates from abroad who will come in here, and very likely we will still be paying a very high price for energy, despite the fact that it will be created on and off our shores. And beyond that, Minister, we know we have a significant problem in housing. And again, this is something that now needs to be addressed in light of where we're going with Ukraine. And I wonder, Minister, have we looked at the idea of creating a housing bond, almost like a war bond in this country? We have a lot of money, we were told, sitting on deposit in this country, and whether it can be put to use. I know of a number of builders who are availing of builder finance from larger builders simply because they cannot get builder finance from the pillar banks. And Minister, they are paying up to 10% per annum APR on builder finance, which is making it unsustainable for them to go at building, notwithstanding where the costs in materials supply is going. So we have a major emergency, and I think we have to do more than we are presently doing. I think Ireland is facing, as I say, some particular difficulties. We have to hope that they will be short-lived, that the Ukraine crisis can be resolved through diplomacy. and that we can get back onto a footing where we were, which is trying to build for the future, recover from COVID and build sustainability into our economy. And certainly there are opportunities, but there are threats, Minister, and I think it's most important, particularly now where we're going, that government would engage with all the deputies in the House. I'm not sure it was done during the COVID crisis. In fact, I can tell you it wasn't. And there's significant expertise in other members of the House here and into contacts and people that they have. And I think it's beholding on government now, given where we are, to start talking to all of the deputies in this House in terms of advancing future government policy.
Thank you, Deputy.